we're getting it figured out. The meeting is recording and it is, people are seeing the yellow, the bus, even though for some reason it's not big there, but we can start the meeting and we're in compliance with everything that needs to be done.
Everybody okay?
I mean, we always have, so I'm assuming that it's,
Everything been up?
yeah.
Okay, we'll call a meeting order at 9:07 with the first order of business would be comments from the public related to items on the agenda or requesting things to be added to the agenda for the next meeting. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? On Zoom?
I don't have anyone by Zoom other than Supervisor Norton is on, is joining by Zoom.
Hearing no public, then we'll go on to approving the minutes from September 15th of 22.
I move.
Second.
Approve them.
All in favor?
I just want to say one thing before you, for the discussion. I was so impressed with the librarians who came. I've been impressed every time they come. We have a great library system, and if librarians are listening, thanks a lot for everything you do, because that's amazing. So
It was pretty neat, and I'd like to get there someday and use that 3D printer.
oh,
I've always wanted to use one, and I've never.
Well, you got a shop to put it in.
Never mind, might like it so much, I'll buy one. All in favor of approving the minutes?
hi.
Next, we got the safety share with Tom.
There is literally nothing to talk about because everything is perfect.
Trick or treaters coming up.
There
It's gonna
you
be
go.
dark out.
There he is.
Watch.
Watch for trick or treaters.
Watch your speed.
Oh, and they always dart out.
Fortunately, we'll be in a meeting. We won't even see them.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll all come to the courthouse, come up and down trick or treating.
Next, we got the chair report. I just say that the county board meeting, we did pass that citizens now on all committees and commissions will be paid. So it's basically, it just makes it fair for everybody. There was like 2 or 3 committees that weren't getting paid. And when we were paying 10 and not paying those, I actually felt like it was an injustice to them that they should serve on the committee or commission and not get paid when there's 10 that were getting paid. It took a long time, probably 6 months I've been working on that, but I finally did get it through all the proper channels, and January 1st, they will start getting paid.
Now, and just to clarify a little bit, they still have to submit to
Submit.
get paid, and they have the option of not submitting.
Yep.
So if somebody decides that they didn't do it, they don't want to get paid, you don't have to take the money.
So, and what I always try to explain to them is take the money, the boys club can use it, you know, the 4-H is always looking for money. Take the money, the county has more money than most of these nonprofits. And at the end of the year, you can write a check out for $600, $1,200 to them, and they will really appreciate it. And all it took you was a couple seconds to collect the money by turning in a per diem slip. Next, we go on to the UW Division of Extension Program Education reports with Todd.
Mike, can I please, or Steve, sorry.
Sure.
Mike is another committee. Steve, can I just please just take a moment, and I'd like to give Madison an opportunity to introduce herself as a new staff member. So with that, I'm going to give a couple moments to Madison to let her introduce herself to you.
So I'm Madison Potratz, born and raised in Oshkosh, but went to school down in UW Madison, very involved in the College of Ag and Life Sciences down there. When I graduated, my first job out of college was a gig with UW Extension down on that Madison campus in Meat Science Extension. So I helped run the Master Meat Crafter program, and that's kind of how I got my foundation in the extension world. But fast forward a few years, I moved back to Oshkosh, started working at UWO in their marketing and communications office, and moved into a nice house, big yard, massive gardens. And that's kind of when that horticulture light really turned on for me. I've got,
We don't see any banks of produce, do we? She
Well,
massive garden, she brought nothing.
But Mother Nature has brought frost. All my plants are dead now.
Oh.
Well, I know I got broccoli and Brussels sprouts, but anyway, so at my house, I've got this massive vegetable fruit garden. I do food preservation, sun garden, shade gardens, invasive species all over that I'm dealing with, composting, honeybees, backyard chickens. My neighbor's converting part of his yard back into a prairie, so I'm helping him with a little bit of prairie restoration. We're
Oh
kind of
my
experimenting
gosh.
with that. So everything that I know about horticulture, I'm pretty much learning firsthand on the job. I know some master gardeners in my family who helped me out, but so now I've been in this role for not quite 2 months yet, still very new, but I'm getting to know our master gardeners and the Master Gardener Association. And you know, I tell myself a lot, if I knew then, back when I was a meat science educator, what I know now that I have that marketing and communications background, I would be unstoppable. So I don't want to oversell what I can bring to Hort Extension here, but I'm really excited. I've got a lot of experience in social media, so I can use that as a tool to inform, engage the public, you know, teach them things, but also get them to sign up for workshops, start volunteering places and stuff like that. And, you know, COVID is, I don't know if you say it's over with, it's done with, it's whatever, but basically we're moving into, you know, we're out of this growing season, but next year in that growing season, we want to do some in-person programming, some workshops. We've got that community garden across the street on countywide that we want to do a demo plot. A lot of the master gardeners have expressed interest in not only having some educational programs for them, but helping me give educational programs to the public. And so that's kind of the who and what I am and what I'm excited for and what I think I can bring to the table for the horticulture element of extension here. But anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah, how many master gardeners do you know how many we have in Winnebago County?
So our association, we used to have, I think, like over 100, and then the kind of the restructure of the whole UW system. Right now on their roster with contact information, they have 53 in their association, but there could be more master gardeners in the county that just aren't members of the association. So I'm still kind of learning, you know, the ins and outs of that, but we've got about 50. And they all have their own volunteer projects. I don't know if you're aware of most of them, but you know, some Nina, Amro, a lot over at Parkview. They do a lot of gardening there. But there is also now just annually, they do a foundations and gardening course through the state UW. And so anyone who's interested in becoming a master gardener goes through that training program. It's all online. And then they have the opportunity to start volunteering, start being involved in the association, and then get to know me as well. And I can kind of plug them in where they want to be in the county helping out.
Good.
Yeah.
I know that a couple people from UW said they were lucky to get you and that they're gonna miss you, so.
Oh, how nice. I'm so happy to be here. I just think it's an awesome job. It's a match made in heaven for me. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
So Madison does, she's gonna sit in for a little bit, but she also has an appointment coming up. So when that, or I think, were they coming?
Yeah, someone from the DNR.
Yeah, so I'm just letting you know that she's gonna bug out in anywhere between 10 minutes or so.
9:30.
And
Yes.
you had chickens or just your next door neighbor was doing chickens? Do you have chickens?
I've got chickens,
You have
yes.
chickens too, okay.
I'm on my second round because I got the first round like 5 years ago, and so now I've got a fresh batch this year.
Mhm.
Learning all their new personalities. Fun animals, fun pets.
Next, we'll move on to Todd.
What was Todd done?
He is,
I mean, was Chris done?
Yes, that was, I just wanted to interrupt so that Madison could sneak
Oh, okay.
out
Okay.
if her appointment arrived.
So I've got a report, I think it's in one of the stacks there, if you're interested. If not, I think over there, yeah, I think there's a file, not that one, the next one, not this one.
We're looking for.
Somebody need
The one
one?
in front of the chair, yep, that file right
This
there.
right here.
I think so,
Mhm.
right?
I got one.
So again, starting off with the eviction updates, we are on course for, again, over 600 eviction filings in Winnebago County, so which would probably be our second or third highest number in the last 6 years. So again, it is high. Again, you can see the historical data there, just included it to see where that would fall in the last few years. We actually are kind of on parity, being that Winnebago County is 6th in total population as of Monday or Tuesday, we're sixth in filings and sixth in judgments in the state. So
Okay, so it's
we're
kind of-
kind of, I mean, it's not a good number, but we're not way above where we should be like we were last year.
can people be
So,
evicted right here in the middle of winter, as winter starts?
Yes, there is no eviction moratorium for winter. No.
Okay,
There's the heating, there's a utility moratorium.
Right.
You can't turn off your heat, but yeah, evictions can happen.
you can have your heat, but you can't live it. Okay.
Yes,
You know, which is just so odd that, you know, like I have renters and they get money from the church all the time.
Yeah,
I
the,
mean, these people, if they don't have a job, why wouldn't they call these churches and these organizations? I mean, she got somebody to pay her rent for 3 months, you know, and I had to fill out a little paperwork for them, you know, but are they not aware that they can
They
make these
are.
calls?
We-
And
we talk about it a lot. I know, like, well, yeah, like Advocate and Levin, and the churches in the community, yeah, we try and push the resources as much as we can. There are landlords that don't want to accept those resources a lot of times, especially when we had the WIRA funding, the state funding and the federal funding. The landlords had to basically sign off that they would accept the funding. And we know that there were a lot of landlords that use that as a way to kind of get around the eviction moratorium. If I don't accept the money from the government, then I can still evict the
I don't know why
tenants.
you'd want to do that.
I-
I mean, it's like-
It was
I think,
guaranteed
you know,
funds. It
you are
was-
probably a rare landlord, Steve, because, you know, they
we're
have,
supposed to be
they have
moving.
mustaches that they can twirl and kick out the widows and orphans.
Yeah,
You're not like that, but there are a lot of bad guys, bad players out there.
we know a lot of that happened. Yeah. So yeah, just the eviction update on what the data looks like right now. So Rent Smart, obviously the biggest part of what I do. Still doing the Zoom classes statewide. We do that every month. Since we started that in July 2020, 28% of the people that have gotten a certificate online are Winnebago County residents. So that just again shows how strong our referral network is between Advocate and the county and housing authority. They send a lot of referrals to us for the online classes. We've got Zoom classes scheduled through June of next year. I am going to restart the in-person classes in the libraries starting next year. We obviously had to stop that because of the pandemic, but there is interest again in having in-person classes. Not everyone wants to or can do Zoom classes, so we get back in the libraries. Menasha, Nina, and Oshkosh.
What do you see as a success rate with people who take those classes and somehow pull themselves around, or
We don't.
what is the outcome you're looking for?
The outcome we're looking for, so there's a bunch of different metrics we use in the Institute. It's trying to get them to obviously learn tenant landlord law, learn what your rights are, learn what a landlord's rights are. And then beyond that, all of the, we start out with very basic budgeting, how to actually create a budget to afford, to understand what you can truly afford for renting, you know, because renting goes beyond just the price of rent alone. You gotta know what else goes into that. So there's 3 or 4 things that we track pretty closely, and I think some of that's in there. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, but you know, in terms of, is this person that got a certificate in 6 months or a year, are they still in housing? There's no real way we can track that. Yeah, we do post-course evaluations that include what did you know before the course and what do you know now after the course. So we kind of have a pre and post. We can do that. So
And looking at where people are living, is it ever your suggestion, you've chosen a place that's really beyond your means, you need to find?
we hear that a lot. Yes.
You hear that a lot, you're not telling
Yes.
people that.
Not necessarily, no. So, I mean, we don't go too in depth into what is your situation right now. There's always participants that share more information than they probably should in a public class. But yeah, we will get people that said, hey, I was evicted because, you know, I thought I could afford this place, but when you talk about rent and then utilities and then renter's insurance and technology and everything else that happens in life, yeah, people get in over their heads. And that is, when we talk about 30% is kind of the limit of what you want to spend on your income in terms of total housing. And we know both in Wisconsin and in Winnebago County, there are a lot of households that are well above that 30%, and more of their income go towards housing. So it doesn't take more than one hiccup in life to
Really set you back.
send things sideways pretty quickly. Yeah. Other Red Smart stuff, still do it out at Oshkosh Correctional. Just finished a class there on Monday. We've had 78 incarcerated individuals have earned their certificate since we started out there. This coming Monday, I've been doing it at the Neenah High School downtown campus in the Brigade building. There'll be 35 students on Monday that complete. I've been doing it at the new men's COTS shelter on the Father Carr campus here. Just finished a class here a couple weeks ago. Upcoming classes, Nova Counseling down on Jackson, they reached out to me saying if I'd be interested in helping and presenting it to them, to their residents that would be moving out. And then the diversion program, the case managers also there at the county, they asked, I gave a presentation to them, and we're gonna hold a class there again for their clients that are going through diversion programs, again, to help them get the certificate and learn all the skills and everything else. And yeah, some of the evaluation results are on the third page from this year. So people that turned in evaluations, we do get a really good evaluation return rates. So on the in-person classes, so this would be at Oshkosh Correctional, this would be all the in-person, whether it's high school or whether it's at COTS and other places, and some of the online classes. So the questions we ask, so yeah, do you think the knowledge you gained will help you obtain appropriate housing? 93% say it might or will. And then do you think this class will help you keep your housing in the future? 100% say it might or will. And then just some of the comments. The most important new idea I learned in the Red Smart program is tenants have rights. A lot of them, we hear some pretty awful stories sometimes about tenants not knowing what their rights are, thinking they've been evicted because the landlord told them they were evicted, and that's not an eviction in Wisconsin.
You mean just saying it?
Just saying, yes. We're like showing, like we know, we've heard some pretty bad stories. Yeah. And then what do you plan to do differently? There were 5 of those 41 responses had pay your rent on time. Like we talk about it. You have to pay your rent the day that it's due, because that can lead to a 5-day notice, which then can lead to an eviction. And yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. So just some of the evaluation responses that we've gotten so far this year. Moving beyond Red Smart, encouraging financial conversations. That's the program that we do where we present to frontline staffs like social workers and case managers on how to talk to clients about financial conversations. Just completed one with my Eastern Wisconsin colleagues. Last class is actually today, I think. I taught a couple modules of that, but again, like staff from AdvoCap or Salvation Army or COPS, those types of frontline staff that deal with clients, how to have financial conversations, because it's not an easy conversation to have, especially with people that are in crisis situations. Second page, Youth Forward Wisconsin. So you've heard about this before. We're still working on trying to create a statewide program for children's savings accounts. Hopefully going to have a listening session with parents sometime soon here in Winnebago County and in Allegheny County. So youth or children's savings accounts, again, what would be, every child, whether it's every child that's born or every child that enrolls in kindergarten or wherever it might be, they give a small deposit in a dedicated savings account that would then be used for post-secondary education. So we've had some success in Racine County with some of the groups down there. So we're trying to get it rolled out, see what the interest is. I've talked to both the Oshkosh Community Foundation for the Fox Cities. There's definitely interest in supporting that and potential funding behind it. So we're just trying to keep things rolling and trying to find out what the interest is.
Are there interest rates paid on these savings accounts?
It would be it depends on what savings account is used. Is it used, do we just set it up with a credit union or a bank, or is it a 529 program? We don't know. It would vary from place to place.
And I was going to ask if is it different if you're in a dedicated savings account that is supposed to be used. I assume that that means it has to stay put. You can't keep
Yes.
making with, yeah.
Yeah.
And that those might pay better.
Potentially, yes, like a 529, that's it, like, you can open one for your children or your grandchildren. That is a dedicated post-secondary education account. And yeah, that is, it's actually an investment. So it pays
Mhm.
a little bit better than just a standard
Okay.
savings account. Yeah. Other things that we're doing with the individuals that are incarcerated, impacted by the legal system audiences, that's the term we're trying to use. When I was doing Red Smart at Oshkosh Correctional, there was requests from staff there to create financial literacy curriculum. I did most of the lifting on that. I piloted it at Oshkosh Correctional twice now, and we're going to roll that out actually in a couple of weeks for the Institute, for everyone at Extension. So it is I think there are 8 modules in it, about a 6-hour program, just teaching basic financial literacy. Again, to the same types of individuals, within a year of release, just the basic things like how do you restart your financial life after release? Like how do you open a bank account? What do I need to look for? How do I reestablish credit? All of those types of things to hopefully give them, a little bit of a leg up after release. So we're really excited about that. Yeah, we'll get that out to everyone, all the financial educators, in a couple of weeks. Beyond the financial stuff, the little bit of family engagement and relationships that I do. So positive parenting program, or Triple P. This is a really robust parenting program that we received funding at Extension a couple of years ago, the Wisconsin ID Endowment. Anyone that was interested in taking the Triple P training, Mandy took it, I took it. I think there are about 15 or 20 educators statewide. We were trained in a lot of different levels of Triple P, and I present that online with a group of educators, literally statewide, all the way from Bayfield County down to Crawford County in the southwest part of the state. We presented statewide, open to statewide registration. Mandy and I did 1 or 2 sessions with our colleague at Head Start. She also went through the training, was open to anybody that wanted to learn how to do it. So do a little bit of that, but obviously not nearly as much as some of the financial stuff that I do. And then at the bottom, some of the other stuff, I go to all of the housing coalition meetings, both the Fox Valley and the Winnebago land housing coalitions, just to stay connected to the agencies that are, working on housing in the area. The State Street Center downtown, so the old Oshkosh building, the county funded. We have started a relationship there, both me and the FoodWise staff. We go back and forth every other month. We present programming down there for whoever is there that day. They do a good job of outreach and letting their clients know that we're coming. Going along with the family engagement stuff, so I'm involved with the fatherhood group because as a male in Extension, there aren't many of us, so to be a man and be an educator, I was happy to join the fatherhood group, but it's good to, when we do programming, so Focus on Fathers is the online fatherhood programming that we do. I'm the only man on that, I think, so it's good to have a male educator talking to dads.
The rest of the educators on the fathers and fatherhood are all female?
Yes, I think there are, in HDR, I think there are 3 male educators total. I don't know how many female educators we have. Dozens, 20 or 30. So yeah, we're definitely the rarity. Yeah, in HDR. Yeah. So it helps to have a man on a man working group and on the Focus on Fathers curriculum. Right now, going through some training with Illinois Extension. They came to us to ask if we'd be interested. They're doing a research project. It's called Strong Couples. So it is a relationship coaching program. So again, it would be a very small part of what I do. But we're going through training on that. So we'll be working with one couple at a time.
Is it newlywed stuff or just?
No, just any couple. Working on really on communication. Again, a really robust, evidence-based curriculum behind it. But yeah, there are handful of colleagues in extension here, and then colleagues in Illinois and Indiana, Missouri, and Iowa State are also in on it. So kind of making a Midwestern thing, but just another good curriculum to have the ability to present. And then I still do a little bit of financial coaching at COTS in Appleton, working with a couple of their residents right now. Coming up in November, December, it's not on here. I just finalized this yesterday, but Winnebago County Human Services, their staff was interested in some wellness programming that typically Mandy would have done, but I'm going to be able to do because it's some of the programming that we have done together. So some wellness programming for their staff coming up in November and December. And then finally, going to present the Veteran Services in December. I know how much that was important to Tom, and yeah, I've made some connections with them. They are excited to have me come there and talk about personal financial issues with some of their vets and their staff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. But it's been a busy couple of months, and yeah, it's not slowing down, which is good.
No.
We ever partner like with the credit union where they'd come along with you and they could help them open up accounts right on site?
Not with specific credit union, like we don't want to
Yeah.
endorse one over another, like we do some, so like Money Smart Week, which is a federal, a week in every April, Money Smart Week, we work with some of the area credit unions. They provide some funding for like scholarships. They will provide some education also. They do a lot of outreach, but like to say, someone from Verb Credit Union wants to come along with me and I will help, I'll have a captive audience and then you could enroll them or you could sign them up for accounts.
Wouldn't be fair to the other credit unions.
Not something we can do. Yeah. But I mean, we talk in general, credit union versus bank and what's a local bank or a regional bank or a national bank. Like we will give examples, but yeah, I'm not going to say, hey, we should think at this place or that place, or potentially don't go to this place or that place.
I just, it might be helpful because they would be there to walk them through the process. It's like to actually get them to a bank or a credit union. It's intimidating when somebody sits down and then, they start going through the paperwork. We just sign this, sign that.
Mhm.
Where if they were in a workshop where if there was 2 banks and 2 credit unions there, it didn't
Yeah.
matter who they were,
Yeah.
but there were people there that would be helping them to understand that, it's pretty intimidating when you go in there for a loan and you see all the paperwork you've got to sign and, it's like, normally I read everything, and they're shoving this paper at you, shoving that paper at you, sign this, sign that, and you think, well, it must be legal, everybody's doing it. Well, assuming is not always the smartest thing.
We talk about that process, so like whether it doesn't matter if I'm at the prison or just any presentation that we do, like how to open a bank account, that we walk through, and there are checklists that we have both from, that we have an extension and checklists that we have from the government, from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, how to ask the questions, what questions to ask, what documents are you going to need? If you don't have your social security card, how do you get your social security card? Or how do you get a state ID? What is it going to take to go in and actually sit down across the desk from someone and open a bank account? So we take them through kind of the general process, but definitely that intimidation factor of, when I was at COTS teaching Run Smart, there's across the street from the COTS facility, there's a new credit union. I don't remember what it is. But one of the residents there had gone across the street with the director of the facility to help him open banking accounts because he hadn't had bank accounts in several years. How do you where do you start if you don't have that background knowledge? If you haven't taken a course through extension, or how do I go in? What do I ask? What do I need?
Well, and it's just amazing, like I was on the board of the Winnebago Community Credit Union for 20 years, and we made hundreds of thousands of dollars on people that wrote bad checks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't understand that there's no money in the checkbook. The check bounces, it costs you money.
Even if you still have some checks left in your checkbook.
It doesn't,
And with the changes in the system now, like if you write a check somewhere, like they will run it through instantly. Like it goes through the banking system now instantly. It's not like it's going to sit somewhere and it's got to actually physically go to the bank. You might get a day or two grace period. That doesn't happen.
no, the credit union would cover it, but then they charge you a fee to cover that check, and they were spending hundreds of dollars a month writing bad checks and they couldn't afford it. It's like, just have to educate them that, if you don't have the money to buy that pizza, don't buy that pizza. Because that pizza's not costing you $20, it's costing you $45.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
And then we talk about, again, a lot of the things we do, a lot of the classes I teach, we talk about like payday loan stores, entitled loan stores, and yeah, we talk a lot about those types of places. And again, there's always someone that's willing to share. I have my car repossessed because I needed a loan and I signed over my title. I couldn't make the payments, or yeah, I thought I needed a couple $100. I could pay it back on payday, and I couldn't, and it just gets renewed and renewed and renewed every couple of weeks, and that couple $100 ends up being $500 or $600 or $700. And yeah, the things that are out there that you need to know about and know how these, for good or bad or otherwise, how these places operate and what they do, and yeah, what the ramifications are. You can't afford things. It's like becoming evicted, or how you end up becoming homeless, or how you end up having to file bankruptcy. Yeah, we talk about decisions you make. Yeah, they have real consequences. Yeah.
I was couldn't have amazed at how much they made on bad checks. It's like, I've never written a bad check in my life. You know, if I don't have the money to cover that check, I won't write a check. You know, and I see people month after month, hundreds of dollars, just throwing away writing checks. And, you know, they'd write a check for a pizza. The pizza that wasn't $20, it was $45. You might as well write a check for $200 because the same fee was going to charge you, and then you'd add $175. You could have bought some more pizzas, you know, but
There's a phrase that comes to mind, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yes. Yeah.
And I have two examples of that where I was charged with giving a check to a family that was in a county house, and it was for their utility bill. So I walk up to the front door and it's 0 out. It was just really cold out. And the front door is wide open. And the heat's just blaring out of that. And I'm going, what's going on? So I give him the check. I said, you know, why is it so hot in here? He said, well, we don't know. So I walked over to the thermostat and I turned it down.
They didn't know how to turn down the
They
thermostat.
didn't know how to turn down the thermostat. So that's where everything that you're doing is great. But the second one is I worked with Habitat for Humanity, and they sent me over to bust on the sidewalk. And there's a faucet dripping. And I told the guy, you know, it's your water bill. He didn't know how to change out the gamut or whatever you want to call it on that. So I did that with him and took him back. That's one of the biggest challenges. You set up everything for them. All the information is there, but you have to be able to absorb it. And then there's this thing called common sense. I was once told that Fox Valley Extension, or no, it was Tech College, that if I could teach a course in common sense, I'd be a rich man. And I see more and more examples of that. Sometimes people just don't think, but I don't know why. There's usually a reason that they don't think. But everything you're doing, everything that everybody in this extension is doing, gives the basis for a good outcome. It's just, we don't see it all the time for whatever reason. I think my 4 minutes are up, Marty.
we got a time limit here. Any more questions for Todd?
Thanks for everything you're doing, Tom.
Nice job.
Next, we'll go on to the extension administrator department.
All right, so a couple of show and tell items.
All right.
Steve,
Do you need this?
I'm gonna cover my small portion of that. Steve, here's the traditional color.
Show me where that is, and I appreciate it. When you're on. I'm just kidding.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, I know it is
It's
something.
in there someplace. All right.
Good. Thank you, Chris.
Sometimes you want to have to go watch the review. Not secret. I found it. So
Madison, you have to be reading?
I'm just waiting for the guy to show
Oh,
up. I kind of
it's
know
a-
what he looks like. but
Ah,
all right.
I'll glance out the window.
So just to cover the budget and for, and Kay's not here, so I was gonna explain to Kay about the colored sheet and how, and what we do with the colored sheet and how it tells a story that it's the exact same numbers that are in the budget book. We just break it down into some color-coded categories, because those are, the color-coded categories are the cost centers. And those are ones that we treat a little bit differently. So for example, the yellow is our revenue cost center. So that's the money that we're expecting to come in outside of our levy number. One of the things that you'll see with in the yellow is that there's a lot of minuses this year. That is directly related to the programming that Mandy did. Mandy had a lot of income or revenue generating programs. She coordinated with individuals that had grants coming in. And her biggest one, which was the sources of strength, was because she was a certified facilitator for that program. So as she stepped away, that's her individual certification. So that program actually went with her. So those are the things that are going, that are happening. We still do have the grandparents raising grandchildren. So those monies are still, we still are anticipating that there's monies coming in, but there's some different amounts there. So just wanted to show, and in the top, in that upper, for the 2023 request column, so that's the gold column, so that's what was submitted, and largely that is, that's what the county executive approved. Minuses are good in that upper column.
This is worrying me.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is minuses are good, pluses are bad up there. So the 8308 is the grant coming in. That is the grant coming in from Human Services for the grandparents raising grandchildren. We have some general income, just on some copies and things like that. The 3863, that is our, we get essentially a postage stipend from the state through our federal, through the federal grant to actually be able to offset our postage costs. So that's a in kind. And then the program fees, one of the notes, and you can see the notes, and these are where the detail, some of the other details and notes are, and any of the variance requests. So in that program fees, that's where the income last year was a change. So we have some 4-H program fees that come through our office now as a required part of the changes and updates to the risk management policies and procedures and the contract procedures that Dana is fully responsible for. So for example, buses to camp. So she's responsible for securing the transportation and make sure that the bus companies have all of the certificates and things like that. So because she's responsible, we need to have it in a, it's where we have worked out an agreement with the Leaders Association to do that. And then also, and I'll talk a little bit about, because you'll see some increases in expenses related to Real Colors. That is that's essentially our budget is a pass-through for that. That's our cooperation with the executive's office to offer Real Colors to all of the employees, supervisors, committee members, commission members in Winnebago County. And so, yes, we have the expense, but then we also have different from the executive office, the funding sources that come in and cover that. So that's included in those program fees. And as we get to it, you'll see where that expense is. So those are directly off, those directly offset each other. And if we don't have the income, that means we don't have the expense. So that's the other piece that goes along with that. But now we're into expenses. The red, this is our county staff. So this is actually Amy, Jody, Sarah, and Sandy. So Sandy Bell is our grandparents raising grandchildren coordinator. So she's our casual part-time individual that provides support to the specific logistics of that program. So these are the numbers that the HR payroll team provided us. That also includes the as the the across the board wage increases plus any of the proposed step increases, changes in any of the benefits up or down. That those are numbers are given to us, and any of the ups and downs are just we deal with them because that's what we need to do. Is we need if you look at extension, we have most of our money in people. People are the most important thing for us to provide services to reach the educators. So we absorb those costs wherever we need to. The green area, the reason why this one is green, this is our travel and registration. We do actually have a small worksheet, but it shows you in what our kind of where our math is. So the registration and tuition, these are events that individuals would be going for in which there is a registration fee. Tuition is not necessarily meaning for courses or like for credit, like somebody's going to get a degree in for credit courses, but there are maybe certificate programs or like things at TAC or other around the state that tuition is so that we use that broader term. We set aside roughly we average $900 per full-time educator, and then the part-time educators have a prorated amount, and we have amounts for the admin staff so that they can if there's training or other type of professional development that requires a fee, that would be included there.
And what are red numbers?
So red numbers are numbers that went down compared to the 2022 request. So
Okay, except meals went up, but it's still red.
Apologies. Red are there are changes that we had to make a variance explanation in the budget entry system. So the amount of the percent increase met the threshold that we have to provide an explanation based on that. So the meals increased 21%. So the number so it went from 400 to 485, but being such a small amount, it's actually a 21% increase compared to
And lodging went down.
so lodging went down. So
Okay,
this
I'm
is one of
really
the things
confused.
where so here is in last year's budget, we had identified professional development that our staff were planning to attend, that they knew were attending, so we could budget for them. This year it went down because we did not have the same level of known or planned professional development that we do this year. And instead of that, so this is how I prefer to do it. Instead of having a big number that every year we don't realize just because we're hopeful, I tried to put in more real guesstimates, and that number may go up and down based on what our actual needs are. And I'm much more comfortable explaining that to this group and justifying it than to say, or then for at the end of the year for you to say, well, why didn't you spend this? And we said, oh, I thought we might be able to, but I didn't. So Mandy had some known travel as she presented and attended a professional conference just in September. So she knew that when we put the budget in. We already knew in the budget when we did this process over a year ago that she was at this event. And the only question wasn't her attendance, it was whether that event was going to be face-to-face or virtual.
Okay.
So those are also included in that is our automobile allowance. Our automobile allowance, and one of the things about that is, and I'll talk a little bit when I get to the contracted services. So I do have plans in place, and we are moving forward with regional crops and a regional dairy educator. And so there is still the Winnebago's portion of mileage is still included in there, but that individual, their other county partners are also contributing. So there's still the mileage pot for those regional educators, It's just that our share is, I guess, essentially prorated to the amount of the position. And in some cases, leveraging technology and resources to make travel more efficient and more meaningful, and not like just driving around for the sake of driving around. So trying to be impactful that way. So the white area, so the other thing is with the exception of the two lines in the next, this whole white chunk is a cost center. And so while we do break out the different line items at the end of the year, essentially that we're looking at where are we in comparison to all of our budgeted totals, all of the sum total in that white area. These are our operational expenses. And so a couple of the ones to look out, and if you look at 53003, that's 127% increase. That is for directly related to the Real Colors, the cost of the Real Colors program materials, and those are offset by 45055, which is that program revenue that I referred to. So essentially, we conduct the training, and through extension, we conduct the training, we buy the books, and then as the participants in the different departments take the training, then we're get that direct reimbursement back. So computer software, a different shift in moving, and this is one of those account as we've evolved of moving line items from the IT assessment. So IT is working with Mike Collard in his role, just getting things in the most appropriate spots. So the computer software, which is 5304, yep, it went up 153%, but later on, and I've got to remember where it is, later on, the computer maintenance contract, so the computer actual from finance and actual the Microsoft interfund changes. So you can see a large change in 73006. So they changed to get it in the right spots. So it's not an actual increase because it's one line item. Because if you look at the with the subtotal, the subtotal is still within with comparable to last year. Does that make sense? I mean, it may not make sense, but it's not only is it just from the accountant standpoint, but then also in relation to what are the auditors want to see, so that things are matched up according to general accounting principles of local government. All right. So moving through a couple of things, we did increase now that we are so subscriptions used to be newspapers and like periodicals, and now we have actually shifted because we have subscriptions to computer products that are appropriate, that are most appropriate to be here. So we have a county Zoom license, our extension office Zoom license. We utilize MailChimp as our email connections manager platform, and then Canva is a creative studio suite for marketing and promo materials that gets used almost daily, if not multiple times a day, to be able to use templates and formats to make social media posts and videos, slides and things like that more, I guess, more friendly. The 5309 and 53514, those ones you can see that there are some increases. Those increases are directly offset by those program fees. Those are reflective of the changes with the 4-H program. Year one, we made some educated guesses or estimations, and then this is based on with a year of experience. This reflects more closely to the expenses related to camp that go through the office, including the commercial consumer transportation. Those are the buses for camp, buses for our art, for the regional arts program that they held in Rushholt, those types of things. So those are directly offset by those program fees. Some other those are those are the bigger ones there. Yeah, and now I'm gonna switch, I'm gonna flip over to the other side. So so one of the things that we are looking at, so the increase of the 53,580, so small equipment tech. These are the pieces because we do have a couple of laptops that are our checkouts that are not part of the IT replacement plan. So we want to make sure and these are ones that would get used if individuals don't have their own tech available to them for the meeting room usage. The other thing is that we have with our anticipated, with our new staff, there are some one-time initial licensing and or small pieces of equipment like camera, web cameras or headsets or things like that to set up their office, their portable office pieces that we don't have because we're actually adding staff members. And once we're full staff, one of the things that happened, and this is not a bad thing, when we did do remote and virtual and our programming did change, we kind of cannibalized everybody's stuff. Whatever was left around, we would use, and we found some things like web cameras don't have a super duper long life expectancy. So we were going through, you just naturally go through, especially if you're packing up and putting them in a bag and resetting them up, you're putting wear and tear on the cords and connections. And so, not that they're super expensive, but that roughly half of our cameras each year and or our headsets that have all these cables and cords, roughly half of them are probably replaced every year, every other year. I mean, that's just something that's now the cost of doing business. So the other piece is, and this is something that I know Todd and I have talked about and others, is it is nice to be able to have a setup so that when we come in, we have docking stations with our laptops that you can come in, plug it in, and you have your camera and everything set up, and then you have your portable so that if you are in a space or you're in transition and want to connect, that you are able to do things. So we are having some duplication, but it is intentional because it allows the educators to be the most impactful, so that if I'm happen to be here, I mean, I kind of have a backup set of everything that I carry with me into one of my 4 spaces that I regularly work. And so that allows me to connect at a high quality just about anywhere. So that's what we're trying to provide, those options for our educators. So that's why that amount is increased. And one of the workstations, we're also creating flex workstations because we have with our regional educators, we have a need to create some other spaces for drop-in, like that people that may not be, this may not be their permanent, like their full-time headquarters space, but they would be here working on a semi-regular basis, but very likely not at the same time, so that they have a spot where they can sit down, they can plug their computer in, have access and be able to connect. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the contracted services. So the professional services, you can see that is there is a decrease in that, and that's not a loss of not a loss of service. It's realistic to the amount that the 9,100 that was budgeted wasn't in the previous. So this would be things like interpretation or translation services for our educational programs, or other, like, speaker contracts or other things that were not anticipated that relate to individuals. That with the 9,100, as you can see, 5,000 down to 500, down to 300, 22 in 22 was 9,100 because there was some anticipated or estimated use. And it was realized that that was not the correct estimate. Whereas the 6,500 with our programming, especially the programming now that we're increasing face-to-face programming, and our intentional reach into underserved and protected audiences, that we hope to increase we do plan to increase our usage. Even little things, for example, Madison has already been working with ways to reach with our horticulture education with the Hmong community gardener audience, and that that's going to require some translation and language services in order to do that effectively. So those are some things where that comes in. So the red line under other contracted services, I want to draw your attention to the other handout that has other colors to it. This item, I do have a little bit of cleanup to do, but this item is going to be included in the budget packet as an appendix, because those of you who have been through know that in many cases, the one question I get from supervisors is, why is the contracted services number so big? What does that contain? Well, this is what that number entails, or what that number entails. So, the one thing I do need to reconcile is that there is the number that's included is in the 2023 request, which it says request, but that is included in the executive's budget. Is 334,123, and my math has 322,924. So it is a difference. It's just a few dollars, but I have to go through and reconcile of where that is to make sure I've got those numbers right, because I'm not intending to be misleading or anything like that. So I just have to go and redo a couple of calculation pieces, and I think I know where that one actually came from and why I need to update it. So on the top portion, in the upper portion, so the 4-H educator, positive youth development educator, financial educator, community development educator, and then the regional crops educators. Those are co-funded shared positions with a cost share, with Winnebago County paying a portion of paying a flat fee or a portion of a flat fee in return for proportional services with the state, with the Division of Extension picking up the rest of salary, fringe benefits, and other expenses. And those individuals are UW-Madison Division of Extension employees that are contracted to do work here in Winnebago County and the surrounding areas in some cases. So this year's flat fee is $44,900. So you can see that that is the amount, and then Dana in the 4-H educator position is a one full FTE 1.0. So that's where that amount included in the Wapaka and Winnebago County budgets is a share, a 0.3 share of a positive youth development position. There's already an existing positive youth development position in Outagamie County, and there are conversations with that individual and the Positive Youth Development Institute about taking a multi-county approach to the work that individual is doing, because in many of the cases, there are a number of communities in which the county, the civil county border is just a suggestion. Where for example, the New London and Hortonville area, there's a lot of youth programs that go across between those two counties, regardless of what the actual border is. Again, Neenah, Menasha, Appleton, in those communities. Another example is Wrightstown, the Brown County, but this would focus here. Really looking at reaching out specifically and trying to provide youth development programs to underserved or protected audiences. So one of the examples, and so this is an example. There is a program called 4-H Juntos, and it is It's a program specifically designed to reach out to families in which Spanish is their primary at-home language, and to provide them youth development activities and engage. So to essentially the basics of 4-H and fundamentals, and then help provide those families the opportunities to grow, but then also then to continue to connect them to their community resources so that they can be actively engaged within their community as well. So that's an example of that type of a type of program that could happen. We've got Todd's position as of January 1st, and I think we signed the paperwork, or it's on its way.
I did my part.
Yeah, I know, and I did my part. So on January 1st, Todd's position will be a co-funded position. So his status and all of those things remain the same. It's just the funding string is that the state's going to pick up a portion. And if you listened when his report, all of the things that he's doing that's contributing not only locally, but then impacting the state, and then asked to collaborate on some regional multi-state projects. That's where the state is saying, hey, yeah, we kind of like this guy, so we're gonna pick up part of it, because we want to make sure that he gets the recognition and the respect that he deserves for the work that he's doing. So that's good news. So we have me at community development that's shared with Outagamie and Winnebago County, so that's represented there. The regional ag crops, right now I am in communication and working out the details of having an experienced crops educator that would serve and work with both Outagamie and Winnebago counties to provide that level of expertise. So if that's the case, that individual would be housed in Outagamie County, but we're still working out some of the details and the nuances on that. If not, then it would slow things down. That would be around January 1, when the contracts go into effect. And then the other one related to that is there is a regional dairy educator position that is we're working on the final details. It'll probably be posted around the first of the year, so it won't be too bad. But that'll be a position in Outagamie, Shawano, Oconto, and Winnebago County. So kind of a long skinny, but it also matches up with a lot of other dairy producing areas. And so that's where there is going to be, and I think that's where my number came in, because going from that it was at 0.3, because I had hoped that Wapaka was going to be part of Wapaka Outagamie, and that number is lower than because of that. So that's where I think my adjustment came in.
Question,
Yes.
do the ag and dairy, is there any crossover between this department and land and water?
Yeah.
I would think there'd be a lot.
So most of the crossover would be in the crops, and so here's where the and yes, Chad and I have been talking, and he is impatiently waiting, and we're working as fast as we can. Think about this, that a number of Chad and his team's projects are implementing projects. So they're administering the technical parts of, whether it be, manure pits, remediation, grass waterways,
Wait, so
fill
when you
in.
talk about manure, because I'm thinking that's more dairy than it is agriculture.
Well,
because they fill up,
but-
talk about runoff and.
Right, so but here's, once it comes out of the cow, then it becomes a crops and soils issue.
Okay,
Okay, so the crops and soils, they get the feed into the mouth of the cow, and then they take over when it comes out of the cow.
okay.
Then all of the other things that go around into getting the milk out of the cow and where the cows live, and all of those things are the area of the dairy. And I don't mean to simplify it, but there are some really big nuances, especially when you get the soil involved with everything.
Okay.
So there may be so Chad and his team, and then up in Gamey, Greg and his team have, in the summer, they're like never in their offices, right? They're working all over there, working in the field, and they're making sure everything is. Where Extension and our educator team works with them is that we work to create those educational pieces so that the farmers and landowners know the why, not just the what, like, hey, you should do this. It's why should we do this? What are the long-term effects? What are the actual, research about manure application rates as part of the, and what are the techniques and why might it be worth it for you to invest in new equipment to do it this way, which does work with the objectives and principles of our land conservation team in trying to reduce non-point source pollution, and to be able to do nutrient management, things like that. So they do couple, but yet they each know where their roles and areas of expertise are. And there is some overlap, but not as much as you would think on, because it's supporting our farmers and landowners, Extension does, through an educational model and providing information so that they can make change and know the why, and land conservation helps them with the what.
Okay.
So, good question. No, thank you for that. And so those are our co-funded and our shared positions, and you'll see that we still have been able to maintain the $10,000 discount for having at least one Extension educator, full-time educator. So that's there. And then you'll see there are two county funded positions. One of them is Madison at 0.8 FTE, and the number that you see there is the estimate of her salary and fringes. And we're still at an estimate because all of the wonderful benefits that Madison has an opportunity to access, it takes a long time. It takes like 3 months for all of the calculations to go through the system so that I have an actual number. So we're still working on the estimate, and that's no fault of Madison or myself. It's just we have to wait for the system to catch up so we have an actual number. So that is an estimate, and that will be much by January 1. That'll be much closer to an actual number. Okay. And then you can see that the health and well-being educator at the time that was created, this is a proposed position. And as I had mentioned to you, before, not only so the other thing that is included in here is not just the salary and fringe benefit rate, but also added in at the key locations there. So my brain all of a sudden clicked in. You asked about where the red are the areas that were included in the budget request that would be operating expenses that would support that position.
Okay, because you're actually.
Yeah, no, it wasn't making sense. It wasn't making sense, and there's a reason, because it didn't make sense. So the red ones are areas that were adjusted after the executive's budget came out with the 1.0. With the 1.0 FTE health and well-being educator.
Okay.
So those are those support, so we pulled, when we proposed, we took all of not just the salary and like, oh, we'll figure it out, but we took the whole of the cost associated. So both the operational support pieces and the salary and fringes. So the amount, or what the executive included in the executive budget, was for a 1.0 FTE of a health and well-being educator. So you can see that amount estimated is at 98,500. Just an FYI, the other piece during the conversation, or our meeting with the executive, and Steve was there. The executive also asked to look for me to submit the numbers with a 0.8. So he had both a 0.8 and a 1.0. So here's the other piece in conversations with, this position, if approved in the budget, we will have it ready to post early January. The month of December is not the best time to post for positions. I've already had conversations with HR and the institute director. if approved, we would post it at a range of 0.8 to 1.0. So we have the funding to go to that. And we recognize that there are some individuals and very highly qualified candidates that are really looking for a 0.8 position. That's just an amount that would work for them for whatever their life situation. You know, one of those, and I've had conversations, one of our current employees, Madison, now granted, we are able, you know, that 0.8 does provide some opportunities to, you know, do side gigs or be, you know, responsible for, you know, as far as your, you know, parent or children or whatever needs and things like that. It allows some flexibility. So I'm just letting you know that we're going to do that intentionally because it may open up the candidate pool to get the most qualified candidate.
How is that job description gonna change so that that person will be working with the Diversity Affairs Commission?
So that,
What John kind of told me.
okay, so that the right now, the position is going to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within their scope of the health and well-being with their programs. So for example, there are three main areas that the health and well-being educators work within. It is mental health, physical or emotional health. Those are the two bigger ones, or physical or environmental health. So trying to create spaces in communities that people live in, and also having, you know, and with nutritional access to good, you know, local food or good, healthy, nutritious food. That's where some cross partnerships and programs with our FoodWise program also may come in. So we also recognize that many of the individuals that are in working with, and then the other piece is working with community organizations to strengthen those community networks to make sure that these areas are in place. So, right, these sound pretty familiar to the things that Mandy and her role is, that or at least part of what her role was doing. So where the connections to the if there is a commission, depending on how the voting and all of that goes, as far as the Diversity Affairs Commission, the focus of that position would be supporting the educational components of that, or at least, you know, either providing connections or providing educational resources, possibly being a speaker on certain key issues, or you know, using network connections to provide those educational resources related to those areas of diversity, equity, inclusion. And not as much, I think, that one of the things that I think is important, as whatever comes of it, that the committee or commission or some group like that, while there may be support, they figure out how to organizationally, with key help, but organizationally to support themselves, and then use these resources to be able to help further and work with them. The other thing I think that's important to note, Steve, is that many of the audiences in these areas of health and well-being that are discussed, many of these individuals are very similar to as Todd is sharing as far as financial. There's individuals that are they may be in a protected class, so they might be a racial or ethnic minority. They may be in a poverty, you know, recognized at or below the federal poverty limit. But there's also a large group that what's called ALICE, and that's access limited income constraint. And those are individuals that may technically not meet some of these criteria, but are still have strained resources. Many of them, just by looking at the demographics, many of them are in, or can, they may not realize it, but are in underserved audiences or are members of protected classes. So that is whereby, so by default, the focus and the nature of the work is going to reach, is going to try to bring resources to everybody in the community. And also working on how can we create community systems and community environments for effective change. So one of the things that we had discussed, so the other piece, and this goes along into that is, I'm kind of, we'll talk, I'll go back, but I want to hop to one of the other things I was going to share. We're doing our federal civil rights review, and I let you guys know that last month, and next month, or at some point soon, we're going to just share you. We're still working on some of the things. One of the things that we've identified is we have some really awesome groups that are doing great work, but sometimes they're not all connected to each other. So that's where the hope I see where some opportunities in you know, a position like this, or at least creating some increased connections amongst some of our organizations that are doing awesome things. But how can we even, the word that's coming to mind is awesomer, and I know that that's not the right thing. But you know, how can we even create and expand that power? And that's what I see that.
Here, I guess here's the question I'm asking
Yeah.
you. Right now, they have no support staff. They meet, they have nobody, they have to reserve the rooms. The workers got to set up the Zoom. Is that person going to help them facilitate, reserve the room and act as basically an overseer of that meeting? Otherwise, I need to get somebody that's going to do that, because it's impossible for a committee to basically do all the work in an hour and a half a month and actually think you're going to accomplish something. If there's not somebody behind the scenes, like we meet today, if you basically don't go and do the work, like if Todd doesn't go out and educate, what am I ever going to accomplish here? Nothing, you know. And if they're not going to have somebody behind the scenes to do some of the legwork, they meet once a month, they can't accomplish nothing in an hour and a half or an hour meeting. There has to be somebody that's going to work on, you know, like say an employee's handbook. You know, you can't write an employee's handbook working on that an hour a month. It'll take you 3 years. You know, if that person isn't going to devote any time to helping that commission, then we might as well get rid of the commission, because it's never going to succeed. You know, it needs county support. And if the county isn't going to support the commission like other counties are doing, then there's no need in having a commission, because we don't believe in it. If you read the article in Northwestern, then it's perfectly fine to say, you know, if you're on fire, I wouldn't even pee on you. That's what we believe then, because that's high management that's talking like that to these people. We think that's appropriate. And what I'm looking for is somebody to support that commission and to help them do the work. Otherwise, I agree with them. We might as well get rid of the commission.
So this position, as it's in line with other extension positions, would focus on educational components. That is of diversity, equity, inclusion, mental health awareness, physical health awareness. It would, and all of those pieces, it would focus on the educational aspects. This position would not be tasked to be an overseer or a supervisor of the Diversity Affairs Commission or a similar commission like that.
So they would have no support then from.
No, I didn't say that. I said you want like specific logistical setting up Zooms and essentially babysitting them. No, that position will not. They will provide educational support and be a partner in the efforts, but that is not the scope of this role.
Then I'll be taking this position out of the budget, and I'll be adding in a diversity coordinator, just so you know.
Okay, I'm disappointed to hear that because of all of the needs in our community.
And I'm disappointed to hear that you couldn't support what I need. I thought we worked together as a team. We were partners, but I can see that's not the case. So we'll go, you fight for your position, I'll fight for mine. Continue on, I'm done.
So one of the patterns that I've had, and I just want to express that to all of to anybody and all the elected officials that are listening. My phone number and my email, and I am very happy to meet at any time. And I have seen a pattern of coming to public forums and grinding axes and throwing me and Extension under the bus in public forums when we could have had a conversation prior to work to discuss.
I called you. Did you ever call me back? No. And you told me you were going to. After you talked to
You are
John.
correct.
Yep,
You are
there
correct.
you go.
You
So
are
the ball was in your court and you dropped it. Not me.
Correct. Okay, understood. Okay, duly noted. I still stand by the statement that I made, not necessarily in this venue, but in other venues as well. So that, I will just say that I think this position can do a lot of good, can do a lot of good in the community and be able to focus on a lot of stuff moving forward, because there were inherited things that Mandy as a predecessor had to work with, or brought forward. So it's still in the proposed budget, so it'll be up for discussion.
Question.
Yes.
Really, the way I look at this is that what we've identified is there's two elements. Number one, to have a committee, it has to be operating somehow. What you're talking about is exactly right. It should be supporting that. But if we don't have that support in that committee, we don't need the committee, hence we don't need support. You gotta have it both ways somehow to get what he's talking about, because he's got history showing that they don't go anywhere.
I think my response to that is that while the example of how that is only one example or one part of what this role would be, this role has other community connections and other educational opportunities. So by the nature of the virtue of the role, there would be an educational component or an educational connection to not even just a county recognized group, but to other organizations and other groups that may already exist in the community. So that is one part of a multifaceted approach to how extension would utilize a position like this to reach out into the committee or reach out into the community and have impact with its residents. So that is, there are education. I mean, there is the We Cope program is a evidence-based curriculum that is only offered in the state of Wisconsin by extension educators. It's a fairly new development that is working with individuals in multiple stages to help support them with their mental and emotional health. So that is an example of an actual outreach program. Our extension staff are both get trained and have opportunities to connect with community leaders and community members in trauma-informed care. So trauma is not necessarily just, I was in a really bad car accident, from physical related trauma. It's other areas that might include physical, emotional abuse, living in impoverished or neglect situations, and that having these how, and it's not necessarily and that one is not necessarily with community members as targets, but it's working with residents, but actually working with community groups to make sure to multiply in that understanding. One of the other areas specifically is ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. So similar to trauma-informed care, but focusing on creating understanding and awareness of those youth in our youth who have those adverse childhood experiences, and then working with community members to ensure that there is a community of support. And many of those those trauma-informed care and those adverse childhood experiences don't know they don't know the difference between what race or ethnicity you are, or how much, whether you have poverty situation or not. So those are things that would impact and affect all of our community residents. So to me, that's why this position is important, is because of its impact.
I agree that this is important. I just would have thought that they could have taken 3 hours of a week, 12 hours a month, and worked on with the Diversity Affairs Commission. So that is why I will take this position on the budget, and I will add a diversity coordinator position, because you and I couldn't agree, and you didn't call me back to discuss it with me. And I discussed it with our county exec, and he told me that is how it was going to be. So if that's not the way it's gonna be, then I will do what I can do. I may not get what I want, you may win,
Well,
and
so,
that's fine.
so,
We'll let it
so
happen.
Steve, I did have a very brief conversation with the county exec. And in that conversation, there was not shared with me the expectation of serving as a coordinator. It was, and I'm gonna be honest, and so this is where we may have to agree to disagree, is that by hiring an extension educator who is a Division of Extension employee connected to all of the resources of the land grant institution, that's where it could be tougher to, to have them in that management type role. It doesn't match up as nicely. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying with the time that we had from the budget preparation to, the position description hasn't been created yet. The posting is not out. All right, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, because there still are a couple of meetings that need to happen before this budget is approved. So I don't want to waste everybody's time if those changes happen. So there are still conversations that can happen, but the overall vision and concept is that this is a community educator position that will support the areas that I talked about: mental health, physical health, those communities, and be a partner with if there's a group or community group such as the Diversity Affairs Commission.
Did Mandy not support the commission since the commission was established? She basically facilitated that meeting. A person from your office took the minutes of that meeting, and now that commission has been abandoned by this office. They get no support, a little bit from Human Services. There hasn't been one person that gave them any support since Mandy's left. And before that, she attended every one of our meetings, and your office staff, somebody took the minutes of the meeting. And what they were getting is non-existent anymore from this office. So apparently we don't believe in the commission is worthwhile from your office. I believe it's worthwhile. I'm going to fight for it. You in this office abandoning it because there's been no input since Mandy left on any part of this office. And Mandy found time to do that for the basically year I was on that commission. She attended 90% of the meetings. I maybe missed one or two, and gave us all the feedback and did a lot of work writing the strategic plan and the bylaws. She worked with us hand in hand. And now if this new person can't pick up where she left off, then I will not support this new person, because she had time for it before, and this new person should have time for it in the future.
Okay. Questions for any other items that you might have?
I just, this kind of falls into place with it, but I found out at the Fox Valley University Extension that they do, a guy came and talked to us, and I can't even remember his name, but getting jobs for people.
Oh, sure.
And he knew me at Maya, and Maya had worked with him. And first of all, I trust you. And you gotta go from there, because everything you're talking about is way over the top of my head. But I think you and I have had conversations before where I say, how many people? Where's the justification for what we do? I will give you 100%. We've got this wall of knowledge here of all your educators that are sitting up here that have the capability going out and touching people one-to-one. How much are we doing that? I mean, the numbers, what success rate do we have? Because there might be something that we're doing that our success rate is not enough to justify what the means is. Now, I see the budget, but, and you said there is documentation of how many people are contacted and success rates in that. You get that and see that?
Yeah.
All right.
I was hesitating because success rate is a little, but I know what you're saying. I just had to
It's a just, because you can spend time with one-on-one, person walks out the door and nothing happens. So that's the thing about all this, is that you've got this wall of knowledge sitting here. But the question is, are we reaching out to the people that we should be and getting that? Like with me, when I found out that the University of Oshkosh has all these, what is it? Funding jobs and companies
For small businesses.
for businesses and all that, I'm going, well, that's really great. Here in Oshkosh, you know, what's going up by me? Now, I see that she's in Appleton too, so that could be, but I don't know that. I don't know if I really want to know that. I want to trust that the system knows what's going on. The people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're getting help to get to the point they know what they're supposed to be doing, so that we're spending money wisely, not creating this wall of knowledge that can't be penetrated. That's just my point.
Let's see, you know, I'm agreeing with Tom, I don't want, because what I'm about to say something I'm disagreeing. I do think we are doing, our staff, they are doing one-on-one kinds, you know, obviously the stuff that Todd is doing, all the places he's doing these education things. Chris Soper taking people on tours of grocery stores and farmers market and the grandparent raising grandchildren. I mean, we do have staff touching groups and individual lives, but I can understand, I mean, I do understand, I mean, I feel your frustration as well. I'm agreeing
The
with you.
point would be then, is if somebody's doing that, but could use more help. Oh, they probably have to ask, but reality is we should be funneling the money to where we're getting the most success. I don't know. I didn't go to school to become an educator and all that kind of stuff.
And
I'm just
I
trying to
can-
make sense of it, and a lot of this stuff goes way over my head.
And agreeing with Steve, you know, I agree that the Diversity Affairs Commission is not making an impact, but I think it's,
I think we were making a
We were,
big impact
yeah,
before we lost all the staff that helped us facilitate it.
yeah.
We had basically public input meetings that had 70, 80 people that would attend them. We lost all the staff. If you have like, if the 5 of us would meet and none of these county staff would be here, we'd meet an hour and a half. That would be it. The work would be done till the next month. There's nobody to further the process. It's impossible to work like that. You know, you can't accomplish anything in an hour and a half a month with no county support to implement anything, finances. You might as well get rid of the commission. I agree. If they can't get the support, I agree to get rid of the commission, because you cannot function without basically some involvement from the county, the extension. Somebody has to give them the support to basically further the process. And we were making leaps and bounds. I mean, that commission was, we got our strategic plan, we had our bylaws passed, we were gonna work on a handbook, we were gonna have basically handouts at the farmer's market. We had $2,500 to get brochures printed. All that went right by the wayside because everybody gave up on us. They all left. So now you have basically 4 or 5 people trying to do it with no county support. And there's no way that commission can ever function like that. And if that's the way the county wants to be, they don't want any county support, they don't want no help, then they might as well basically do it on their own, and the commission might as well go away. But I will try my best to get a coordinator, and I may lose, and we'll have a health and well-being educator, so be it, but it won't be because of lack of trying. I will try.
Second question, could be an easier one, is how much more do you have to put in the budget for having broadcast meetings all the time? And you don't have to tell me now.
So,
I just-
no. What I don't know is so I can, for us doing these meetings, it's included in that Zoom subscription to be able to have so we have, our office has a subscription, a pro account subscription. So that, because we separated intentionally from our educator accounts, because for example, if say Todd was the one who created a meeting and he needs to use his account, you know, he's like, oh yeah, I can set that up for a partner group. And then he needs to actually do a Rent Smart teaching or whatever it is, then they would be in conflict with each other. So we have that set up. The other thing might, I think, like, for example, here is we have some of those small tech equipment pieces to make sure that we have cameras and microphones that can pick up what we.
There's a robot or something that
The-
I've seen in.
Right, the owl,
The owl.
so it's an owl. I believe IT and through the team that's working on that are working on purchasing, increasing the numbers of those. So that would be the example of, we did use that last month with the, when we knew we had the larger group that was gonna come with our library partners. And so we use that for that larger group.
So would IT then know what the cost is for that, or does that impact your budget?
At this point in time, I have not been told to put those costs into my budget.
That's fine, because then I can ask them how much something like that costs. That's all I have,
Steve,
until I think of something else.
Steve, Supervisor Norton raised his hand, so I don't know if you would like to allow him an opportunity to
Sure.
comment. And Supervisor Norton, I see that you have raised your hand. If you have a comment or a question.
Yes, Chris. My question is, and you said we want a position that's called a health educator. And my question is, Chris, where does that position, how is that position different than a health educator position in the health department? And we learned Tuesday night that the health department is going to get another added position that will deal with the community and all that. So that's one of my quick questions. And that I'll wait for your answer again. Thank you.
Okay. So while I haven't seen the position description of the health educator, I'm making some, based on experience, I'm making some educated answer. So one of the main differences, and that was the description of, like, for example, that We Cope program, that is only available to the community through extension staff member personnel. So it is in the past. So for example, Mike, it's one of those things that I do see that the health department and or part of different parts of the human services would be partners. And then the key is being able to then the health and well-being educator would have access to extension and university resources that they would be able to say, okay, you work at it from this standpoint, and then I have the ability, I'm kind of putting myself in that HWB, I have the ability to address it from this perspective using one of these programs or approaches that I have been trained in or have access to the resources to. So while I haven't looked in compared to exactly what they would be, intentionally this is not intended to duplicate any existing. This is intended to augment and allow them to partner to maximize those opportunities. Sometimes based on whether it be sometimes funding strings, but whether it be grant based or other thing related, that there might be some limitations where one individual or one organization can do things a little bit differently or more than another, which is why we tend to have so many community partnerships or community collaborations to magnify that impact.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me speak. And I'm not against this or for it. I'm not against or for what the health department may add, but that's one question that you and whoever supports this definitely going to have to answer, because I'm sure some of my colleagues are going to have the same sentiments that you just said. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me speak. Thank you.
Just one other update that I do want to actually to we are welcoming some new staff in the area in Wapaka this week. We welcomed Tiffany Iliadis. She is a lifespan and financial security educator. She's just getting her feet under her, but that she will have a opportunity to be a program partner with Todd and other extension staff as and intentionally, because related to that, Outagamie County, we are hiring a lifespan and financial security educator as well. That posting just came out this week. So building a connection of or collaboration of UW talent and resources to especially focus on financial security and our lifespan, which is our light aging population, individuals that are making transitions, and the families that are supporting individuals that have upcoming or current transitions. So aging mastery, planning ahead, those are actual evidence-based programs that our educators offer, in addition to some other financial planning for individuals in the state. That's actually what planning ahead is working on that. So so those are a couple of things. So at some point you may see or hear new names in Todd's report or in my reports, because intentionally by creating a group of cohorts in an area, it allows for some opportunity to maximize impact, because we are likely going to have individuals that have different lived experiences and educational experiences, so they can teach and reach different audiences, and we do it in collaboration. We can maximize their impact. So so that's one thing that's happening. The other thing is that the next meeting, I'd already given Steve a heads up last month. I will be out of town. I do know that there are some items that will be on the agenda, so I will do everything that I need to have things set up and provide a written report, a written update to anything that's happening.
Will Madison be taking your place?
Yeah.
So bring your chickens.
Maybe we haven't gotten to that point of who's gonna.
Just throwing it
of
out
who
there
will-
to see if I can get a
Of who will
reaction.
say,
She's listening.
so.
Any questions from Chris or for Chris? Hearing none, we'll come to the announcing upcoming extension events at the county board meeting for discussion.
I don't really think there's anything, the time is too valuable to bring that up this next time. We can see how things are going after the next meeting, if there's something to, but do you think we should even take any time? Nobody listens to you half the time.
Well, I think with the pizza sale, Andy Buck wanted to, give him the email address twice, so I think we did sell some pizzas.
Oh, yeah. And that I think is, if there was something like that, I would agree, but
Yeah, I don't.
right now, there's more important things we'll be talking about.
Then we'll move on to scholarship task force updates.
Yes, we're meeting a week from tomorrow, and it's on the calendar. There's an agenda, there's paperwork, and I have a committee. It's small, but we have a committee, and including one citizen member. And since we may be able to get this all done in one meeting. That would be nice. So this may not even approach the January 1st thing, but is this a committee that would be paid after January 1st if they were to meet?
If you
Including the-
were appointed by the county board chairman or the county executive, you'd be paid.
How do people get? I don't know who appointed this committee. Was it this department that appointed this committee?
We just made it up,
Yeah, so probably not then.
Well, as a county board supervisor, you could get paid, but I don't think the citizen could get paid.
Okay,
You know,
that's not
any
why
meeting
he's doing it,
that you attend that would deal with extension, you are appointed to the extension committee. And this is something that the extension committee is working on. So any county board employee, I believe, could be paid. A citizen isn't appointed by Tom or John, so I don't believe the citizen could be paid.
Okay,
But as far as the county board supervisor, I believe you would get paid.
okay. I didn't even think I could get paid, but I thought I'd ask about this. All right. So anyway, so I should be able to have a report for the next meeting, because we'll meet on Friday, next Friday, and, does anybody feel like they need to have a report before that time, after we've had the meeting? Do you want something emailed to you? Okay.
Just have a meeting, be successful, and we'll celebrate.
Yay, yeah.
Next, we got committee members' comments. Hearing none, the meeting schedule, we meet the third Thursday at 9 o'clock, so our schedule will always stay that unless we change the day we're gonna meet.
Third Thursday of November.
Yep, it'd
That's
be
the
November
17th.
17th.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just didn't know how we were doing.
Next, we need a motion to adjourn.
So be it.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
All right.
All right.